The hierarchical structure of the art community has always been an intriguing subject for me to think about. Given the existence of algorithms on most large social media platforms, there are definitely artists who objectively receive more attention for their work. There are almost always going to be artists, no matter where on the internet you go, who are way more well-known, and the reason for that could be cited to numerous possibilities, such as they post more frequently, they've been around for longer, their work has a significant quality to it that makes them stand out, or, a combination of those things. But from the perspective of a smaller creator that is just trying their best to scrounge up views, watching a larger creator do so seemingly effortlessly can create a lot of divide between those two members of the community. But what about when you take this whole concept to the subsection of the larger digital art community that is character trading, as in artists who create designs and sell them to other people or trade them amongst themselves for different designs? There are certainly popular creators in this space too, and those creators are often referred to as pop designers, aka popular designers. A design that was made by one of these large creators is called a pop design. And this fad in the character trading community has become something akin to designer brands in a lot of ways. Many people actively seek out these designs to collect them, kind of like buying Gucci bags or Chanel belts, where part of the appeal is, of course, the function of the product that you're purchasing, but you're also willing to pay way, way more for it for the name associated with it. This has developed into a bit of controversy in this side of the art community over time. A lot of people have grown frustrated with the phenomenon where pop designers will sell character designs that feel pretty raw, bare bones, even low effort, for very, very high prices simply because, well, they can. The demand will always be there for the name attached to it, so no matter what they design, they can be pretty sure that it will sell. This is something I've wanted to talk about for a while. Is the frustration towards pop designers valid? Do pop designers have a responsibility towards their community to adjust their prices to not be exploitative of their massive following? Is the culture of intentionally seeking out sought-after designs just for the name of the artist who made it silly? Or maybe it's just a harmless hobby? I really want to talk about all those questions today, so that's going to be the focus of this video. And if you're an artist or creative watching, I can assure you benefit from hearing about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform for hobbyists, artists, and more, and it offers thousands of classes to help you learn new skills and make projects that you're proud of, including character design for those of you watching who are interested in that. Skillshare offers classes in a variety of different categories, including but not limited to illustration, animation, photography, and more. I especially like to use Skillshare for tutorials on software that I'm not as familiar with. A while ago, I posted an animation meme on this channel, and that was my first time ever using Adobe After Effects. Adobe software is especially difficult for me to get used to, but I have a larger project that I've been working on as a potential animation I might post one day starring one of my characters. I found a lesson called Beginner's Guide to Adobe After Effects Learn Motion Graphics, and I followed along to help me learn how to use the different features of the software. I really liked how the class was clearly sectioned because it made it easy to look for exactly what I needed, and I felt like the instructor was super clear and moved at a nice pace. The nice thing about Skillshare is that you're directly learning from real artists and instructors who can offer you tips to help you improve. If you're interested in Skillshare, you don't have to just take my word on it though, because the first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so get started today. With that being said, let's move on to the video. So first, let's talk about the culture in general. What defines a pop designer? I personally think there's no numerical cutoff for being a pop designer audience-wise. I am a pretty large artist in terms of following on Toy House, relatively speaking, but I don't consider myself a pop designer, and I think there are artists with similar followings to me that absolutely could consider themselves pop designers. I think you need some level of notoriety for your designs to make you a pop designer, and not to mention some exclusivity to obtain a design by you that makes them more sought after. I'm popular because I make YouTube videos about Toy House. I'm not popular because I make and sell a lot of designs. I don't sell them for very high prices when I do, and I don't have a mass of people clamoring to own quiz designs or anything. The only people who are people who are just my fans, like fans of my channel or something. So that being said, why do pop designers exist, and why does their work get more expensive at this stage in their career? I think it's important to consider that for the most part, a lot of pop designers have experienced being a small creator before. It can take a lot of time and hard work to build up an audience to the point where you are considered to be a pop designer, and I think that even though at a certain point having a super large platform for long enough can disconnect you from artists who are still in that stage, even if you have lived that experience before, pop designers are still at the core of it, members of the community. Once your audience starts to reach a certain size, you do start to be able to charge more for your individual designs. Whereas small designers are pricing based on a minimum, I feel like pop designers are pricing based on a maximum, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is that a small designer is trying to slash prices down. They're trying to make them as low as possible to stay competitive competitive and find someone who will buy a design from them for that price. If you don't really have much of an audience, you're basically holding up a product to a room of like 50 people, hoping that one of those 50 people have some amount of money and is also willing to spend that amount of money on a product. When you expand that room to 50,000 people, you don't have to worry anymore about the possibility that nobody in that room will have the money that they are willing to spend. So you have the ability to keep raising the prices in your room as high as you can until you can't keep raising them. I made a Google form for this video because, you know, I love to do that if you've watched some of my videos before, and one of the questions basically asked how many people intended to raise their prices if they grow larger as a creator into a place where they can do so. 68 people said 4 or 5, meaning 68 people leaned towards yes. 49 people said 1 or 2, meaning 49 people leaned to no. From what I can gather, this does mean that a majority of the art community does want to raise their prices over time, so that's why it happens, because you guys intend on doing it from the beginning. I also want to point out that one of the first questions I asked was audience size. Over 60% of the respondents answered that their following was within 1 to 100, meaning the art community is built up of very small creators who want to grow a larger platform so that they can raise their prices. And I don't even mean that as a bad thing. The first response to this forum was my response, and I am one of those 4s. I intend to, and I already have, increased my prices of my work since when I started selling stuff because of multiple factors. For one, when you're a small artist, you are usually not picking prices because you want to set them at that value. You're picking prices because you have to. I wasn't pricing based on what was fair, I was pricing based on what I thought people would buy. Art takes me time, not to mention the mental stress of thinking that you made progress, sending a sketch or your line art to the client and having them tell you to change everything or add more things. Yes, it's in their right to do so as a client, but it makes art even more time-consuming than it would have been. Along with that, I'm growing older and money is becoming increasingly relevant to my life, and I think that applies to a lot of the people who started selling their art at a pretty young age. I'm 18 now, not 13. I'm trying to save up for my first car still. At some point, I can't live in dorms anymore. Life is becoming super expensive when it used to be saving up for $40 jeans or a ticket to Warped Tour. I used to not really worry about those same things because of childhood innocence and the fact that my parents largely provided for me. I asked a question about whether or not the popularity of a designer should affect the price of their work. By that I mean, if you're popular, can you price higher? Or if you are the owner of a pop design, are you allowed to charge more for it by resale because of the fact that it is a pop design? We were unsure about this actually, which is interesting because the vast majority of the questions that I asked had a pretty clear skew. 79 people leaned to yes and 89 people leaned to no. My personal opinion is that the fact that a designer is popular doesn't make the design have any more inherent value in the same way that a designer bag doesn't have inherently anything better about it than a regular one. A pop designer can create a design that might be just sort of okay, while a designer with less following could totally come out with a design that knocks her socks off. But I think it's important to again revisit the fact that I mentioned earlier that most, if not nearly all, pop designers are at their core members of the community. So if they are considered pop designers, usually there's some factor that played into them building up this community, which was mentioned pretty often in the open-ended question. Pop designers are often popular because they're good. The thing is, a lot of pop designers are really good at what they do. And I know that raw skill doesn't necessarily mean that they use all of it every time, which I'll talk about later in the video, believe me. But first I want to address the fact that pop designers, especially on Toy House, are super good at it. One of my favorite pop designers, if you would call her that, I feel like the near obsession over her work has slowed down over time to a more natural point regardless, is Tally's Tired, aka Tired Egg, aka Warrior Cats for Life 9 if anyone remembers that. I'm a bit of an OG, okay? And because I am, I can tell you that Tally came from a small coding website called Scratch. Jesus Christ, I was checking her Scratch again for reference for this video, and how are they 17 now? Time really does fly. Anyways, Tally's improvement through her art career is actually insane to me. She develops so amazingly as an artist and designer. It's very commendable. But she got popular on Scratch, or relatively popular compared to what was popular numerically speaking there, by joining multi-animator projects because her animations were just, really good. She moved to Toy House eventually, which was the pipeline that a lot of Scratch kids were falling into when they became teenagers. I want to say that this is what pushed her into being a pop designer, but they can fact check me in the comments because I'm pretty sure they watch my videos. But from my perspective though, I remember not really knowing many popular creators right off the bat when I first made an account other than her, because she was what was popular to me from the website that it came from. So people like me really wanted her designs, and as she kept improving as an artist and designer, her design quality became better. Like, I remember when I was 14 or 15, literally all I wanted was a Tally design. It was my dream to have one. I thought that every single one she made was gorgeous and looked so fun to draw. The fact that she was growing in popularity made people more protective of giving away her designs once they got hold of them, meaning the only way to get your own was to buy one directly from her, which a lot of kids in the age range of her audience at the time couldn't really do because we had no money and we couldn't get a PayPal account. Or you could try and trade for one from someone else, which was also super hard. So that exclusivity made them, in my opinion, even more elusive and made me want one even more badly. But I feel like Tally is a little more of an ethical designer in the way that her rise to fame pushed her to keep improving, and she still joined projects and got involved with her community in a way that made her still feel human through it all. Not all designers end up like that. I feel like the most common complaint you see thrown a pop designer's way is that they start to put less effort into their work over time, because from a lot of people's perspective, you don't have to work as hard as a designer once your audience grows in size. I even asked a question about that. People lean towards no, pop designers do not have to work as hard as other members of the community, and people were very skewed towards yes in the prior question, asking if they envied pop designers for the ease of selling their work. I'm glad we were honest about that, by the way, thank you. If you think about the whole room of 50,000 people thing, yes, once you rise to fame, it is a lot easier to sell your designs. The thought that nobody is going to buy it basically doesn't exist anymore when it dominated the mind of a small designer. That takes the motivation out for a lot of pop designers to put the effort in to create something better than the last every time. Because why would you when you can just sell a solid colored white dog and make money off of it for less work? I noticed a shift designers begin to make as they grow in popularity, where they begin to sell only adoptables, or in other words, pre-made designs. Whereas a lot of smaller designers offer a range of options, from occasional adoptables to also the more expensive option of custom-made designs to the client's liking. I noticed a lot of pop designers stop offering this when they grow in size of their platform. Some of the largest pop designers I noticed almost sell entirely on-based pre-made adopts, meaning they reuse the same liner, it's sort of like a coloring page, and they fill it in with different designs and colors. I can't point to anything to explain this phenomenon other than the fact that pre-made designs and on-base designs, especially with a symmetry tool taking out half the work, take way less time to make. Of course, small creators can do this as well, but a pop designer can be positive that they will sell. Why would you sell a custom design that takes you potentially hours to design and draw when you could make a handful of these pre-mades and pretty easily sell each of them for $100? The only way for a custom design to be comparable to doing that would be charging ridiculously high prices for them, which might feel unnecessary and a bit immoral when you can just keep pumping out adoptables. Not to mention, people might even be more likely to drop a band on one of these when they know what they're getting. They know that they're receiving a pop design and they already know what it looks like and that they'll like it. If they order a custom design, they know they're receiving a pop design, but they run the risk that they might not enjoy the finished product as much as that adoptable they saw you post this morning. So why not just buy the latter? I actually don't commission big designers for custom designs unless I feel like their style fits exactly what I'm looking for. I am way more likely to commission a small creator for this because their prices for it might be more affordable, it'll support a smaller artist, and if I end up disconnecting from it, I feel no obligation to keep it and I can rehome it later to someone who might get more use out of it than I would. It makes a sad kind of sense that the motivation to be original bleeds out from pop designers when this kind of monetary dilemma comes into play. And that's why we hate them, right? That's why we hate pop designers. That's why we look at them and we think that they're overrated, that their following size is larger than their actual skill warrants, that they take away from smaller artists and step on the little guys so that they can keep churning out these pre-mades that they're selling for an amount a small artist could only dream of making, could only dream of seeing in their checking account. A solid white dog that took no skill, no thought, no effort, no passion. That's why we hate them. A small artist could make something they put hours into and it won't sell, while they watch these individuals at the top of the industry profit over and over again off of what you know and they know isn't their best work. The only way to dethrone them from this cycle of slop is for them to get canceled, and if that doesn't happen, if they're too big to lose their platform or miraculously they keep their noses clean, they will just keep on doing this, selling more and more low quality, low effort designs that ruin what the art community should stand for, right? That's why we hate them. If that resonated with you, and you live in the United States, or a country like the United States, I can say this with almost full confidence that your anger is misguided. The forum told me exactly what I needed to know to make this video, and I'm going to put together the pieces for you now. And I'm gonna sound a little insane for the rest of the video. You have to stay with me if possible, I'm sorry. Pop designers aren't the problem, it's capitalism. The reason pop designers are so obsessed with money is that they're not making enough. A designer who is making $200 worth of sales per week is barely scraping 5 figures in a year if that's their only job. They could be making 10 pre-mades per month, selling each for $100 and still be considered poor in the US. They could be pulling in $1,000 weekly, which they're probably not, but they could be, and if they were, they'd still be considered lower middle class in the US. The most insane thing is that whatever you want to say about these artists, they're still working harder than a lot of people who are making way more than that. And they're doing all this while being completely self-employed, meaning they don't get any of the benefits that you get from a regular job. They don't get insurance, they have to pay everything for themselves. These designers might look like they're some sort of demonic, rich, corrupted people, but if they don't have another job, then they are at best middle class, which they're not with a second job. When you consider this fact, it makes a lot more sense why designers lose motivation to put more effort into making off-base, high-effort designs when they know that they are putting in more work just to make the same amount, if not less money, than they would have made if they just sold pre-mades, low-effort for pre-mades. Why would you? It's honestly a blessing in some ways that Tally's fame as a designer happened when she was still in her teens. I don't know much about Tally's home life or, tax bracket, and I'm of course not going to speculate into that, but we can at least assume that she spent the majority of her time at school and didn't have to turn this really cool hobby of hers into something that was only about the money. And it's easy to judge people that do, but I can kind of understand where they're coming from. The job market in the US, if you're unaware, is extremely bad right now, and it's getting worse. People are remaining unemployed for longer stretches of time. I'm a computer science student, and when I was in high school, I wanted to find a computer science related internship. Everything I looked at required me to be actively studying for a bachelor's degree at the minimum, including literal unpaid work, which was what I was looking for. I wanted an unpaid internship. I had all the necessary skills to do some of these jobs. I can use Excel, I know how to code in Python, but the job market is so oversaturated that why would one of these places hire a teenage kid to do their busy work when there do exist unemployed undergrads and people with degrees who are also clamoring for the bare minimum? Side rant over. I'm so thankful with all of my heart that I didn't give up on this YouTube stuff. I don't make a lot of money off of this, but at least it gives me a paycheck. There are people my age who don't have that same luxury. Artists are human beings, and the same things apply to a lot of them. For my thank God I have YouTube, they have thank God I can just sell these things. I feel really guilty that as a kid I harbored so much judgment and resentment for larger designers. Thinking about it now, I find it really unlikely that any independently rich, wealthy people would be pop designers. If you have a separate job that pulls in a lot of money, why would you want to put in more work to build a following online and hand draw or color in designs and market them online just to make the salary from that much effort comparable to that of an entry-level position? But what happened to the fun? What happened to the passion? Why can't it just be a hobby? Why can't pop designers just treat it like a hobby that they also make money off of? Because being an artist online can take the amount of work that equates to that of a real job, and as dystopian as this sounds, for the vast majority of people that isn't worth it. Time is money. It is so hard just to get by right now as a person that if you didn't do this stuff in your teens, it's really hard to find the time to get started. I am a privileged kid. My parents take care of my shelter and my food and my water and electric bills and stuff. My first drawing tablet was a Christmas gift. The supplies I bought for myself, I bought in my junior year of high school and onwards. When I couldn't find a reasonable job or internship in my area that was hiring, I was content to just live with what YouTube paid me because that was enough, and I was thankfully not in a position where anything forced me to seek for more. That being said, you can't always tell who is and who isn't privileged just by looking at their social media. You really can't. So many of these self-made artists did come from lower class households, and with what the world is looking like right now, they don't have many options other than relying on their craft. I'm not trying to say with this that every pop designer is actually a great person and makes great decisions, does great things. No, I'm just trying to humanize them a little more than I feel like we have been in the past. Two things can be true. A designer can be using shady practices to make money off of their following and still be in some way understandable. It's interesting how we can recognize that we would personally raise our prices if we had the chance, that we envy the ease pop designers have to sell their work, that we literally want to be pop designers, and yet we still toss around the same complaints that their work is overpriced and that we don't understand the hype. That does bring me towards the actual community too though. What about the people who exclusively buy from pop designers, who collect pop designs and who obsess over them? Is there something wrong with that? I see the complaint brought up a lot that people who are obsessed with buying pop designs never actually use them. And I'm sorry, I've been way past that conversation for years, but I'll entertain it again here. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If someone paid their own money for something, they should be allowed to use it how they want to and when they want to, even if that means that they just want to not use it at all and they just want to look at it. They don't owe it to you or anyone else to draw it any minimum number of times. You also have no idea how they're using it, and it's kind of strange to decide that they just aren't simply because you don't see them post it on social media. Plenty of people just don't post their work on social media every time they make it. I've sketched my characters so many times in my sketchbook, and I post them maybe like 20% of the time. And that's fine. I'm not trying to prove to anyone that I use my characters quote unquote enough. But what about the people who can't afford to buy the designs but want them and would use them way more? Again, they don't owe it to anyone to feel forced to use something any minimum number of times. Some people are busy. They just don't have time to draw whenever they want to, and they have to prioritize one thing over another a lot of the time. I'm doing a combined major and considering splitting it up into a dual major right now. I'm going to be up to my eyeballs in homework soon, especially because I'm in the process of getting a student job right now, and I'm the president of a club that I founded, so I'm gonna have to run and manage that as well. I will likely close down commissions and draw only a few times a month, mainly for YouTube, and I'm not going to be pressured into giving my characters away to other artists just because I'm understandably busy like that. I still love my characters, okay? And I want to keep them, and that should be reason enough for me to do so. Anyone can buy pop designs, even if they don't intend to draw them so often, and I will stand by that. Art is a luxury, it is not a need. It's not comparable to someone buying food and throwing it out or something, because you don't need art to survive. I do think the culture around obsessively buying pop designs that are really expensive just for the sake of owning them without the intent to use them can be a little comparable to excessive consumerism, only wanting them because other people want them, not because of the function they provide or a good deal that you're getting on them, allowing people to keep hiking up the prices without changing the service or product that they're offering, since you will choose to buy them either way. But I will say it's largely less unethical than regular consumerism. This isn't a Labubu. You're not buying a bunch of hunks of plastic just to throw them away in a few years into the ocean. You're buying a digital copy of ownership. Generally speaking, the environmental cost of this all is pretty much zero, and there's no like child labor involved. You're directly supporting the work of an independent artist somewhere else in the world. As long as you're not legitimately unable to see the value in art if the creator isn't popular, I wouldn't really pay much mind to this. It feels like collecting trading cards to me in a way. If you want to judge people for it, then go ahead. But I do look down on judging people for their hobbies and interests when nobody is actively being harmed. I feel like at that point, it just begins to look like bullying. It's their money and they can spend it how they want to. Nobody is forcing you to spend your money in the same way as them if you see it as silly or unnecessary. If you're only hating on them because you feel like it quote unquote takes designs away from people that would have used them more, it seems to me like your opinion is rooted in jealousy and you just want that character that they bought. That's all that it is. If you owned it instead, I think you'd be way more lenient about whether or not you should be responsible to actually use it. If you went on a summer vacation and you couldn't draw at all, I'm sure you wouldn't be super happy if people started snooping into your life and commenting on the fact that you aren't drawing your characters enough. It's a really weird judgment to be receiving about your own property is all I'm saying. I see a lot of people blame the pop designer culture as the reason smaller designers get ignored or can't build up an audience. In my opinion, that's not true. I'm not gonna blame random consumers who are buying pop designs for the reason that one creator is big and another creator isn't. We didn't choose the hierarchical structure of the internet that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Algorithms exist that thrive off of specific creators having a large platform and continue to push those creators instead of smaller ones. That's not in our control. Sites like Toy House don't even have algorithms, so people with a pleasant art or design style will be able to gain a following just by trading their own designs or drawing people so that their art shows up in galleries. If you're an artist who isn't popular on a site like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, I wouldn't blame other people for that. I'd just say you're unlucky and should keep creating content and improving until something miraculously gets picked up. The culture of blaming big creators and their supporters for your own unpopularity while simultaneously wanting to be them, wanting what they have, is inherently toxic to me, and it drives divide in the community. I wouldn't target people buying pop designs and yell in their face that they should be putting money into smaller creators instead. Yes, it's a nice thing for people to do that, but if they like that designer's portfolio and they have the money to spend, why shouldn't they buy it? And that's basically, abrupt ending here, all I had for this video. If there's anything you wanted to hear me cover about this topic that I left out, or you have your own thoughts to share about what was said in this video, please, as always, drop a comment and we can all talk about it. Hey, I hope you liked this brain dump style of video. It wasn't sectioned like my usual videos are because I felt like so many aspects of this topic kind of bleed together and it was easier for me to just talk about it in a big essay format. By the time you're watching this video, college has already started for me, which is interesting because I drafted it a few days before moving out. If you're worried about my upload schedule going forward, I honestly don't know what to tell you about that. I am going to be probably very busy in college, but I'm packing my microphone and my tablet and my laptop, so I theoretically have everything I need to keep making videos from my dorm. And my roommate is chill about it, so you know, I guess we'll see. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.